Shadow Pokemon are some of the most powerful Pokemon to obtain in Pokemon GO, and as of January 15th, we now have a new rotation of Team Rocket Grunts and leaders. So in this video, I'm going to be covering the best Rocket Grunts to focus on, along with which ones have the potential to be Shadow Shiny. The Shiny rate from Team Leaders is going to be 1 out of 64, and then from Rocket Grunts it's going to be 1 out of 256. These are some of the rarest Pokemon to acquire in the entire game, guys, so if you are able to get these elusive Shadow Shinies, it's a huge flex. Now additionally, on top of that, Shadow Pokemon are also some of the most difficult to obtain with optimal IVs for raids and PvP. For the raid/gym meta, you want to have the highest IVs possible, but for PvP IVs, it's a little bit different. You essentially want to have low attack IVs and high defense and high stamina IVs, and the reason for this is because this allows you to level up your Pokemon the most before it hits the CP limit for the Great League or the Ultra League. With that being said, there are going to be some Pokemon that fall under the exception rule because their max CP does not reach this limit, in which case you would just want to have the best IVs possible, or typically like a high attack IV spread. If you want to quickly pull up good PvP IVs for Great League and Ultra League, you guys can use this search string on screen right now. But now with the fundamentals out of the way, let's take a look at the best Pokemon you guys should focus on from these Rocket Grunts. So first of all, let's go over the Fire type Grunt, which is going to have the dialogue, do you know how hot Pokemon Fire Breath can get? We're going to have Darumaka, Vulpix, and Tepig. So first of all, we have Darumaka, which evolves into Darmanitan. This Pokemon is going to be relevant in the raid/gym meta. We have Vulpix, which evolves into Ninetales. It's going to have relevance in the Great League and the Ultra League metas for PvP. And then finally, we're going to have Tepig, which evolves into Emboar. It is going to need the exclusive Comday moveset Blast Burn, but if you actually get this Pokemon, it's going to be relevant in the raid/gym meta as well. Now, for those of you that are a little bit curious in terms of where Shadow Emboar lies in the overall raid/gym meta, it's actually comparable to Shadow Moltres, Shadow Entei, and even Apex Shadow Ho-Oh. That said though, Shadow Darmanitan is going to be better than Shadow Emboar and all the Pokemon I just mentioned, so that doesn't actually require a legacy moveset in terms of Blast Burn. You just want to go with Fire Fang plus Overheat and you can pretty much use it right away if you get a good IV spread. Following that, let's go over the Pokemon you guys can get from the Grass type Grunt, which is going to have the dialogue Don't Tangle With Us. You're going to have encounters with Hoppip, Snover, and Snivy. So Snivy's going to be a new Pokemon feature, pretty much similar to Tepig, and then we're also going to have Oshawott in the Water type category that we're going to go over later. But in terms of meta relevance here, we have Hoppip, which evolves into Jumpluff, which is going to have relevance in the Open Great League. Now previously you did want to have the exclusive Comday moveset Acrobatics on your Jumpluff, but now you don't really need to worry about it because Aerial Ace is actually a little bit better, and it's not going to be an exclusive moveset, so you can run Shadow Jumpluff right away in the Open Great League as soon as you get a good IV spread. Now we also have Snover, which evolves into Obama Snow. This Pokemon is going to have relevance in the Great League, the Ultra League, and also as a Mega Evolution for the Ice type category. If you do end up getting an IV spread that is at least 13, 13, 13, you could also Purify this for the Hundo and then end up using that in the Open Ultra League and then also as a Mega Evolution. Now finally, we do have Snivy, which evolves into Superior. This is going to have relevance in the Great League and the Ultra League, and of course you do want to have the exclusive Comday moveset Frenzy planned, but just like Tepig, you would ideally want to wait until the Univitor to evolve your Snivy into Superior to get it with that exclusive moveset for free. The Water type Grunt is going to be up next with the dialogue These Waters Are Treacherous. You're going to get encounters with Oshawott, Horsea, and Barboach. Now in terms of meta relevance here, we have Oshawott, which evolves into Samurott. This Pokemon is going to be relevant in the Open Great League and then also in the raid/gym meta as a Water type attacker. For both scenarios, you do want to have the exclusive Comday moveset Hydro Cannon. So again, same thing that I said with Tepig and Snivy. If you get a good IV spread, remove Frustration and hold on to this until the Univitor event. Now following that, we also have Horsea, which evolves into Kingdra. This used to be pretty good to use in the Open Ultra League, but it's not really that good anymore, so I'm not going to recommend this Pokemon. And then finally, we do have Barboach, which evolves into Wishcash, which is going to have relevance in the Great League and the Ultra League. This Pokemon is actually ranked super well in both of these metas, so definitely going to be a top priority. Not to mention, Barboach is also going to be a 1k purification, so hold on to this Pokemon just to, purify it for any quests you might get. And I totally forgot to mention this as well, but one of the other Water type Grunt encounters is going to be with Magikarp, which also is a 1k purification. This Pokemon evolves into Gyarados with 400 candy, so quite a big candy requirement. But the upside here is that it actually has relevance in every single meta, so Great League, Ultra League, Master League, the raid/gym meta, and it has a Mega Evolution. So in terms of PvP, you want to have the exclusive Comday moveset Aqua Tail, but if you're going to be running this as a Mega Evolution for the raid/gym meta, Hydro Pump is going to be preferred. Moving on, let's take a look at the Electric type Grunt, which is going to have the dialogue Get Ready to Be Shocked. You're going to get encounters with Joltik, Magnemite, and Blitzel in the first slot, and then for the second slot, you'll have encounters with Voltorb, Electabuzz, and Alolan Geodude. Now with that being said, I do also want to mention to get an encounter with the second slot is only going to be like a 10% chance, so it's pretty slim. That being said though, Shadow Electabuzz is pretty good, and so if you actually are able to get this one, when you evolve it into Shadow Electivire, this Pokemon is going to be pretty good to have in the Raid/Gym meta. Going back over to our first slot of Pokemon though, we have Magnemite, which evolves into Magnezone. You can do this under a Magnetic Lure module. This Pokemon will have relevance in the Open Great League, Ultra League, and also in the Raid/Gym meta. Now specifically, there is one PvP IV spread that I do recommend building because you could also use it in the Raid/Gym meta, and that is going to be the Ultra League spread. So this basically powers up to around level 35 if you have the right IVs, and it's going to have the same power potential as a level 40 Raikou, so that's pretty good if you ask me. Definitely not like the best of the best, but definitely a great way to take advantage of two different metas. Now on top of that, you can also get this Pokemon shiny, which is super awesome. And then finally, we do have Alolan Geodude, which is going to be in the second slot. This is going to be a 1k purification, so just wanted to mention that as well. Unfortunately, the other Pokemon aren't really that meta relevant when they evolve. Galvantula isn't as good as it used to be. Electrode has play in limited metas, so I guess you could focus on that if you want to. And then Zebstrika I don't think is relevant at all for anything. Taking a look at our next Rocket Grunt here, we're going to have the Flying type Grunt with the Dialogue battle against my Flying type Pokemon. So in terms of the encounters, you're going to have access to Pidgey, Taillow, and Zubat in the first slot, and then for the second slot you have access to Zubat, Swellow, and then Gligar. Now in terms of relevance here, we have shinies for Zubat and Gligar, so you have the first slot and the second slot chances right there. Now in terms of actual meta relevance, so we have Pidgey, which evolves into Pidgeot, which has relevance in the Open Ultra League meta as well as a Mega Evolution. And then we also have Gligar, which is going to have relevance in the Open Great League, and then it also has an evolution into Gliscor, which is going to have relevance in the Open Ultra League. So a pretty good Pokemon to focus on, and then also has that potential Shadow Shiny chance. So when it comes down to the Flying type Grunt, I strongly recommend doing these every single chance you get. With the exception of Taillow and Swellow, every single one of these Pokemon has some sort of use, whether that's PvP relevance, a 1k purification, or a potential Shadow Shiny. Following that, we have the Poison type Grunt with the Dialogue coiled and ready to strike. We have the Shiny potentially with Shadow Coughing, and then we also have Trubbish, which is going to award 750 Stardust per catch. Now in terms of meta relevance, we have Nidorina, which is going to be relevant in the Open Great League as the Hundo. So if you want to get the best IV possible for this, if you want to use this as a Nidorina, you could also evolve this into Nidoqueen, which has relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. And then as far as Croagunk and Nidorino go, neither of these Pokemon are really that good. Taking a look at the Ghost type Grunt next, we're going to have the Dialogue reading Key. You're going to have encounters with Ghastly, Golett, and Duskull in the first slot, and then for the second slot you're going to have encounters with Dusclops, Haunter, and Sableye. Now as far as Sableye goes, this is also going to award you bonus Stardust, specifically 750 Stardust, just like Trubbish. And you can also have the chance to get this potentially Shadow Shiny. Now in terms of overall meta relevance here, we have Ghastly, which is going to be a new one for this rotation. This is going to evolve into Gengar, and then also Haunter as relevance in the Open Great League, I believe, as well. But we're going to focus on Gengar here, which is going to have relevance in the Open Great League, Ultra League, and then also for the Raid/Gym meta. Now specifically for PvP, you want to have the exclusive Comday moveset Shadow Punch. This is like super important on Gengar if you want to run it. Gengar is definitely a really good Pokemon to use in the Open Ultra League, honestly. I think that is the best place where it shines the most. We also have Golett, which evolves into Golurk. This Pokemon is going to have relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. It actually is pretty good right now as well, so definitely a top recommendation. We have Duskull, which evolves all the way up into Dusknoir with a Sinnoh Stone, which will have relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. And then even though we did already go over Sableye, in terms of its meta relevance here, it is relevant as a Shadow in the Open Great League, and then also if you decide to Purify this actually benefits a lot with the move Return. So in terms of whether or not you should actually Purify your Sableye or just go with the Shadow, I would definitely take a look at the exact IV spread, and then also consider when you Purify a Pokemon, the IVs go up by +2 across the board, so you would ideally want to get something like 0-15-15, Purify it, then it goes up to 2-15-15. Once again though, it's going to be pretty difficult to get yourself a Sableye during this rotation, not to mention one with good IVs. Next up, let's take a look at the Psychic type Grunt, which is going to have the Dialogue, Are You Scared of Psychics, that use Unseen Power. The only Pokemon that you're going to get from this is going to be Solosis and Gothita, both of which when they fully evolve into Gothitelle and Reuniclus aren't really meta relevant for anything, at least not currently. Maybe they could get move pool updates in the future, but as of right now, I would just skip the Psychic type Grunts entirely. Moving on, let's take a look at our Dark type Grunt next, which is going to have the Dialogue, Wherever There Is Light, there is also Shadow. You're going to have encounters with Cacnea, Alolan Rattata, and then Stunky. Cacnea does have the potential to be Shadow Shiny, so keep an eye out for that one. You also have Alolan Rattata, which is going to benefit from a 1k purification, and when you actually evolve it into Raticate and Purify it, this Pokemon benefits from the move Return just like Sableye, and you don't really want to focus on a Shadow Raticate for PvP, only the Purified one is actually any good. And then finally we do have Stunky, which evolves into Skuntank, which will have relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. Following that, we're going to have the Bug type Grunt next with the Dialogue, Go My Super Bug Pokemon. You're going to have encounters with both the first slot and the second slot. In the first slot, you're going to have access to Scyther, Venipede, and Caterpie. In the second slot, you're going to have access to Carablast, Shelmet, and Anorith. Now from the Pokemon mentioned, you also have the chance to get Scyther as well as Anorith in their Shadow Shiny forms, and then Caterpie is also going to benefit from a 1k purification. But in terms of meta relevance, the only one here that's actually any good, and it's not even like super good, it's going to be Scyther, which evolves into Scizor. This has relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League, although it's not really that good. I would say like it barely made the cut here, so it's going to be more niche if anything. Next up we have the Fighting type Grunt, which is going to have the dialogue, "This buff physique isn't just for show." So you're going to have encounters with Machop, Mankey, and Timber in the first slot, and then you're also going to have encounters with Hitmonlee, Hitmonchan, and Gurdurr in the second slot. Now from those Pokemon mentioned, you have the chance to get Machop in its Shadow Shiny form, and then also when you evolve it into its second stage form, Machoke, it has relevance in the Open Great League, and then when you go with the final stage evolution, Machamp, it has relevance in the Open Great League, Ultra League, and the Raid/Gym meta. Following that, we also have Mankey, which evolves into Primeape, the second stage form, and this will have relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. That being said though, you do want to have the legacy movesets Karate Chop and Rage Fist, and then if you actually want to take it all the way up into Annihilate, this Pokemon will have relevance in the Open Great League, Ultra League, and Master League. Now as far as this Pokemon goes, you want to have the exclusive Comday moveset Rage Fist as well. So when it comes down to Primeape, it's actually going to be a double Elite TM moveset, but for Annihilate, it's only going to be a single. We did just recently have these Pokemon featured during December Comday, so hopefully some of you guys were able to get them, but if you didn't, I would definitely recommend hunting these down right now. And then finally, we do have Timber, which evolves into Conkeldurr. This will have relevance in the Raid/Gym meta as a fighting type attacker with counter and dynamic punch. The normal type Grunt is going to have the dialogue, normal does not mean weak, and you're going to have encounters with Stantler, Bidoof, and Bunnelby. And then on top of that, you're also going to have encounters in the second slot with Rattata, Meowth, and Diggersby. Now from those Pokemon mentioned, you have access to Stantler as well as Meowth, which can both be Shadow Shiny. Meowth is also going to award you bonus Stardust, so you're going to get 500 Stardust per catch. And then Rattata is going to be a 1k purification, just like Alolan Rattata was. Now as far as meta relevance goes, you have Bidoof, which evolves into Bibarel, which will have play in the Open Great League, and then you have Bunnelby, which evolves into Diggersby, which will have play in the Open Great League as well. Going back to Bidoof, I totally forgot to mention this is also going to be a 1k purification, so honestly the normal type Grunt is probably one of the best ones you guys can farm. There's just like so much to take advantage of here. Speaking of take advantage though, let's take a look at our rock type Grunt next, which is going to have the dialogue "Let's rock and roll." So first of all, you're going to have encounters with Tortuga, Arcan, and Roggenrola in the first slot, and then for the second slot, you're going to have access to Craniados, Shieldon, and Graveler. Graveler is going to be a 1k purification Pokemon. Roggenrola is going to be a good Pokemon to have in the Raid/Gym meta when evolved into Gigalith, although you do want to have the exclusive Comday moveset Meteor Beam. That said though, if you don't want to worry about it, you also have access to Craniados from the second slot, which evolves into Rampardos. This is going to be better than Shadow Gigalith, and it doesn't require any of the legacy movesets. So if DPS is your goal, Rampardos is going to be your guy, but if you want a bit more TDO, then Gigalith might be a better option. But again, it does require that Elite TM. And then finally, we do have Shieldon, which evolves into Bastiodon. This Pokemon is going to have relevance in the Open Great League. I do want you guys to keep in mind that Bastiodon is already one of the super extra large Pokemon builds, and it's going to cost even more to power it up as a Shadow. Considering that it does rank worse, I really wouldn't recommend this. Like if you have a regular Bastiodon, I would strongly recommend investing into that, because it's going to be very resource intensive. But if you really do want to get something a little bit more spicy, then yeah, you could go with Shadow Bastiodon, but I only imagine the hardcore players are going to be investing in this type of Pokemon. Let's take a look at ground type Pokemon next. We're going to have the dialogue, "You'll be defeated into the ground." You'll have encounters with Wooper, Rhyhorn, and Drillbur. And then from the second slot, you're going to have access to Donphan, Vibrava, and then Rhyhorn once again. So 2 chances to get Rhyhorn here, which is pretty good. Now keep in mind guys, like if you wanted to build a really good rock type attacker, I wouldn't worry about Shadow Gigalith or even Rampardos. I would focus on Rhyhorn, which evolves all the way up into Rhyperior. You do want to have the Legacy Comday moveset Rock Wrecker, but I mean, I guarantee this right now, you will not regret using an Elite TM on this Pokemon. When I finally got a good IV spread on my Shadow Rhyhorn, I took that thing to level 40 immediately, gave it the Elite TM, got Rock Wrecker, and it's just been history ever since. Of course, you do want to pair it together with Smackdown as the fast move. Smackdown is going to be one of the most important things to have for Rhyperior, so it's pretty interesting that we first talked about a rock type Pokemon in the ground type Rocket Grunt encounters, but now let's take a look at some of the ground type options. So first of all, we have Wooper, which evolves into Quagsire. This Pokemon is going to have relevance in the Open Great League. It's actually ranked incredibly well right now, but you do want to have the exclusive Comday moveset Aqua Tail on it. And then we also have Drillbur, which evolves into Excadrill. This Pokemon is actually one that I use quite a bit because as a fast move, I believe it's with Mud Slap, it's really good to use against rockets. It It also has relevance in the Open Ultra League, the Open Master League, and the Raid/Gym meta, so it's super good just in terms of versatility. And then we also have two Pokemon in the second slot that I want to talk about. We have Vibrava, which evolves into Flygon. This Pokemon will have relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. Now in the past, you did want to have Earth Power, which is a Calm Day exclusive moveset on your Flygon, but now you can just run Scorching Sand, so it's totally cool. Don't even worry about giving it an Elite TM. And then we do also have Donphan, which actually got a nice boost in the meta recently, so this Pokemon will also have relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. So when it comes down to it, every single Pokemon you can encounter from the Ground-type Rocket Grunt is going to be meta relevant, so do not skip these whatsoever. Next up, we have the Ice-type Grunt with the dialogue, you're going to be frozen in your tracks. You're going to have encounters with Speel, Alolan Sandshrew, and Sneasel. The Sneasel does have the potential to be Shadow Shiny, and it's also going to be relevant in the Raid/Gym meta, so very good Pokemon to go for. I just recently powered up my Weavile, my Shadow Shiny Weavile, with awful IVs to level 40, but that thing is crazy good, guys. I've literally talked about this so many times in my top Shadow Pokemon videos, but you know, a good IV regular Pokemon compared to a bad IV Shadow, the bad IV Shadow is always going to be better. So when it comes down to it, if you get that Shadow Shiny, like, don't be afraid to power it up, invest into it, even if it has terrible IVs. I certainly did, and I still got a lot of use out of it, way more compared to the regulars. Now, Speel is actually going to be a Pokemon that we haven't seen in quite some time. When you evolve it into Walrein, it has relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. It used to have relevance in the Open Master League, just not as much anymore. Like, you could still run it there, maybe in like the Master League Premier Cup, but outside of that, I probably wouldn't. Now, the unfortunate downside to this Pokemon is that it's actually one of the few that requires a double Legacy moveset. Both Powder Snow and Icicle Spear are going to be a Calm Day exclusive moveset, so that is a bit unfortunate because this Pokemon is really good to have, but it's also really expensive in terms of like Elite TMs. So when it comes down to it, until you get a really good PvP/IV spread for this Pokemon, I would not use those Elite TMs. Now, as far as Alolan Sandslash goes, the recommended moveset currently for the meta right now is going to be Powder Snow, which you don't need an Elite TM for. But there was a Calm Day exclusive moveset to get Shadow Claw, so if you're like a PvP player who wants to have some more versatility, that could also be a consideration if you want to run Shadow Claw instead. But again, right now the recommended moveset is going to be Powder Snow for it in both the Great League and the Ultra League. And by the way, it's ranked top 50 for both of those metas right now, so really good Pokemon. It's also going to be available from the Steel-type Grunts, which we're about to go over right now. So with that being said, moving on over to our Steel-type Grunts, the dialogue is going to read, "You're no match for my Iron Will." You're going to have encounters with Alolan Sandshrew, like I just mentioned, Pharaoh Seed, Alolan Diglett. In the second slot, you're going to have access to Skarmory, Lairon, and Metang. So all of these Pokemon are pretty good for the most part. The only one here that, I wouldn't really worry about is going to be that Alolan Diglett. Diglett seems like a Pokemon that should be a 1k purification, but it's actually a 3k purification, so I don't really focus on this too much. Definitely straight to the transfer bin. But in terms of the other Pokemon here, we just went over Sandshrew, so I'm not going to go over that again, but we also have Pharaoh Seed, which when evolved into Pharaoh Thorn is going to have relevance in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League. Pharaoh Thorn in the Great League is honestly an excellent Pokemon to have. The Ultra League spread is quite resource intensive, so if you are able to get a good PvP/IV spread, I would strongly recommend building one for the Open Great League. Like, unless your opponent has a Fire type in their lineup, it's going to be really difficult to counter this, at least hard counter it. Now, as far as the second slot goes, we have Skarmory, which has relevance in the Open Great League. Despite all the nerfs, over the past few seasons, it's still holding up quite well. We have Lairon, which evolves into Aggron. This has relevance as a Mega Evolution, but not necessarily like as a Mega Attacker. And then finally, we do have Metang, which evolves into Metagross. Ideally, you do want to have the exclusive Calm Day moveset Meteor Mash on it. This will have relevance in the Open Master League as well as the Raid/Gym meta. And it also has a future Mega Evolution, but I would not recommend purifying this if you get like a purifiable Hundo. Please do not do that. Metagross is so good as a Steel-type attacker. I mean, especially if you don't have Duskmane Necrozma, this is the next top best Pokemon. So following that, let's take a look at our Fairy-type Grunt next with the dialogue, "Check out my cute Pokemon." As far as these encounters go, I believe they're all the same ones that we had during the last rotation as well. So from this first slot, you're going to have access to Alolan Vulpix, Mawile, and Snubbull. And then in the second slot, you're going to have access to Snubbull, Granbull, and Kirlia. So all these Pokemon are actually relevant here, and I'm going to go over which ones you really want to focus on. First up, we have Mawile, which has the potential to be Shadow Shiny. Then we have Snubbull, which evolves into Granbull, both relevant in the Great League and the Ultra League. A little bit more of a niche option here, but definitely playable. We have Alolan Vulpix, which evolves into Alolan Ninetales. Great Pokemon to have in the Great League and the Ultra League formats. And then, of course, we have Kirlia, which evolves into Gardevoir, which has relevance in the Raid/Gym meta, and then also as a Mega Evolution if you decide to purify it, but please don't purify it. And then we also have the Split Evolution for Kirlia, which can can evolve into Gallade if it's a male. You do need to have a Sinnoh Stone as well, and then this Pokemon will be relevant in the Great League and the Ultra League. It's actually ranked super good too, so Gallade, very good for the PvP meta. Gardevoir, very good for the Raid/Gym meta. We have the Dragon-type Grunt next with the Dialogue Roar. How did that sound? You have encounters with Dratini, Bagon, Gible in the first slot, and then for the second slot, which is like I think the first time ever they've done this, you're gonna have encounters with Dragonair, Alolan Executor, and then Gabite. Now as far as which ones you want to pay attention to, you have both Dratini as well as Bagon. Both have the chance to be Shadow Shiny. And then in terms of meta relevance, Dratini evolves into Dragonair, which is relevant in the Great League, and then you also have its final evolution, Dragonite, which has relevance in the Great League, the Ultra League, the Master League, and the Raid/Gym meta. Bagon, when it evolves into Salamence, is going to be relevant in the Open Master League, kind of like more niche option, but it's mainly going to be relevant in the Raid/Gym meta. Now, in terms of the moveset you want to go with this, you have the option to go with Outrage, which is going to be the Comday exclusive moveset, but after the recent raid changes, Draco Meteor is now recommended, and that doesn't require an Elite Charge TM, so if you don't have Outrage, go with Draco Meteor. If you already have Outrage, don't worry about it. And then finally, we have Gible, which evolves into Garchomp, which will be relevant in the Open Master League as well as in the Raid/Gym meta. So this has two different ways you can run it. You could either run it as a Dragon-type attacker with Dragon Tail plus Outrage, or you could go with a Ground-type attacker with Mudshot plus Earth Power. Now with that being said, you could also go with Earthquake if you don't want to give it the Elite TM to get Earth Power. Following that, we're going to take a look at the special grunts next. So first of all, let's go over the rare grunt male, which is going to have the dialogue winning is for winners. So basically you're going to have encounters with either Snivy, Tepig, or Oshawott. We already went over the meta relevance for each of these Pokemon earlier, but I'll go over it once again. Snivy evolves into Superior, which is going to have relevance in the Great League and the Ultra League, and you also want to have the Comday exclusive moveset Frenzy Plant. Emboar is going to be relevant in the Raid/Gym meta with the exclusive moveset Blast Burn, and then finally Samurott is going to be relevant in the Open Great League as well as the Raid/Gym meta with the exclusive moveset Hydro Cannon. If you do get some good IVs during this event, once again, save these for the Univator next month so you can evolve them to get the exclusive movesets for free. Next up, let's take a look at the rare grunt female, which is also going to have the same dialogue winning is for winners. Now this Rocket Grunt is considered the most challenging one to go up against, but if you are able to take it down, you're going to get an encounter with Shadow Snorlax. This has relevance in the Open Great League, Ultra League, Master League, and then also as a gym defender, so it's definitely going to be a top priority. So if you're able to get a good IV spread, this Pokemon is definitely worth investing into, but taking down this Rocket Grunt is anything but easy. And then finally, our last Rocket Grunt we're going to go over is going to be the Decoy Grunt, so you can only get these when you have your Super Rocket Radar equipped and you're hunting down Giovanni. When you're going to those Giovanni stops, you have the chance to actually get a decoy instead of Giovanni, and that's pretty much how you find it. So basically the only requirement here is going to be to have that Super Rocket Radar equipped as you're hunting down Giovanni. If you do encounter Giovanni, do not fight him. Just try to hunt down another one of these and go for the Decoy Grunts. Again, it's very dependent on if you're going for these or not, but there are usually a few decoys every single day, so it's a great way to actually farm some extra Rocket Radar components, and then also the chance to get a potential Shadow Shiny Bellsprout, which I finally got my first one during the last rotation, so I'm super stoked about that. It also had some pretty good IVs, so I made sure to evolve it during December Comday to get Magical Leaf for free, which is pretty awesome. Now that being said though, you don't have to use Magical Leaf if you want to run it in the Open Great League or the Open Ultra League. You could go with Razor Leaf instead, and that way you don't have to use an Elite Fast TM, but it's totally up to you. I think Magical Leaf is a great option as well. If you're still confused about how to actually find and take advantage of these Decoy Grunts, let me know in the comment section down below. I could probably put together a separate standalone video going over this in a little bit more detail on my Clips channel. That being said though, we are not done yet. We still have to go over the team leaders as well as Giovanni with the Super Rocket Radar. So first of all, the team leaders. So you can encounter these by using a Rocket Radar. You guys can get this Rocket Radar by getting 6 components, so basically battling 6 Rocket Grunts, build a Rocket Radar, and then you can go from there to find one of the team leaders. So in terms of which Pokemon we have available in rotation, from Arlo right now we have access to Alolan Grimer, from Sierra we have access to Skorupi, and then finally from Cliff we have access to Cubone. So in terms of the meta relevance here, every single one of these Pokemon is pretty much relevant in PvP, whereas the last rotation we actually had 2 meta relevant options for the Raid/Gym meta. Taking a look at Arlo first, we're going to have access to Alolan Grimer. Now if you're lucky enough to actually get the Hundo or even like a purifiable Hundo for this, it does have some niche play in the Open Great League and then also certain limited formats. So keeping it as Alolan Grimer is definitely an option. Keeping that in mind, the playability for this when you actually evolve it into Alolan Muck for the Open Great League does change because you get access to Acid Spray, which is going to reduce your opponent's defense by 2 stages guaranteed. It's a super good Pokemon to have. Taking a look at Sierra next, we have Skorupi, which evolves into Drapion, both relevant in the Open Great League and the Open Ultra League right now. In the Open Great League, it is currently ranked at number 35, and then in the Open Ultra League, it's currently ranked at number 17. And then finally, from Cliff, we have access to Cubone, which also was available from Cliff in the past, I think. So second rotation here for Cubone, this can evolve into Marowak, which has super good relevance right now in the Open Great League. It's number 12, so great Pokemon for PvP right there. And then there is also that chance that we could evolve Cubone into Alolan Marowak in the future. We did have the ability to do this once, and there's always a possibility of it happening again, although that's probably pretty slim, maybe not until like the Alolator in 2027. So obviously when it comes down to it, I wouldn't worry about this too much, but if you happen to get like an extra good IV spread, maybe hold on to it for that reason. I'm pretty sure it goes without saying that all these Pokemon have the potential to be Shadow Shiny, but if I didn't mention that and you guys were confused, yes, every single one of these Pokemon can potentially be Shadow Shiny. So if you don't really care that much about PvP, I mean, I wouldn't really focus on these as much, but if you want to go for those Shadow Shinies, then definitely try to take advantage of them. I think Skorupi looks really nice as a shiny just in general, and then Alolan Grimer as well. So hopefully I can get myself those Shadow Shinies with some good IVs. That'd be amazing, but we'll see what happens. I don't really have the best luck with those. And last rotation, I was pretty bummed I couldn't get myself a Shadow Shiny Beldum or a Shadow Shiny Ralts. It is what it is at the end of the day. It's a 1 out of 64 chance. I went like over 90 encounters with these team leaders and I got nothing. So yeah, it happens. That's just RNG at the end of the day. Sometimes we go over odds, sometimes we go under odds. With all that being said though, let's finally take a look at Giovanni with the Super Rocket Radar encounter, and that's going to be Palkia. So Palkia is going to be replacing Heatran as the next Shadow Legendary Pokemon available from Giovanni. This is going to start on the 15th of January, so by the time I'm probably uploading this video, this has already started. In terms of meta relevance for Shadow Palkia, based on what I've seen so far, it's the equivalent to Palkia Origin Form with Spatial Rend, so if you already have that Pokemon powered up, I would not really worry about Shadow Palkia, but if you don't have that, then it might be a consideration. And the reason I say that is because it's also going to have relevance in the PvP meta for the Open Master League. It's currently ranked within the top 10 right now. So if you want to roll the dice on that potential hundo with your Super Rocket Radar, it could pay off nicely for you. You also have other options out there like Shadow Salamence, Garchomp, and Dragonite. I mean, those are all available right now. I mean, the Dragon-type Grunt is pretty hard to encounter, but if you are able to encounter it, get one with decent IVs, I mean, the power potential isn't like that big of a difference between those Pokemon. So when it comes down to it, like you could just farm those, save your Super Rocket Radar for something in the future, and then that would just be a good move to go for. But if you don't want to worry about hunting down those Pokemon, you could just get yourself a Shadow Palkia, and regardless of the IVs, powered up to like level 30, because that's going to have the same power potential as a level 40 regular Dragonite or Salamence, which is pretty good if you ask me. Definitely a great way to take advantage of your resources. Now when it comes down to me personally, I'm going to be stacking my radar for the foreseeable future. I just don't really see Shadow Palkia as being worth it. Like I already have a Shadow Salamence at level 50, a Origin Palkia at level 50. I don't really need this Pokemon. And then even when we get Shadow Dialga in the next rotation, I'm probably just going to stack that radar too. Now I totally understand that some of you guys might be confused on how to actually stack your Super Rocket Radar, so if you want to check out how to do that, then watch this video next, or if you want to check out the best Pokemon to use against Rocket Grunts, then check out this video as well.